Hello everyone, hope you are doing marvellously well. I've got to stop doing Warren Hewitt, man. Why'd I fall into Warren Hewitt all the time? It's not even my catchphrase. Right? Hello everyone is my catchphrase. So hello everyone. My name is Paul Third, not Warren Hewitt. My name is definitely Paul Third, and I do plug-in shootouts. Okay, actually I do more than that. There's music marketing stuff and just like audio geekness. Okay, there's a whole Mixing Wednesday playlist. You can check all that out. There's a community page as well. I'm always telling people about audio deals and anything that I find interesting that might benefit you guys, I'll stick in the community section. So I do suggest you subscribe, and there's a join button as well, so if you want to know more about Mixing Wednesdays and get behind the scenes stuff and have an input into the plugins that I use, and also kind of more behind the scenes look into Mixing Wednesdays, then you can hit that join button as well. Become a Mixing Wednesday member and kind of help me out more on this audio journey, okay? And there's also a Patreon that I'll link down below. Now that's really if you want to kind of invest with me in the analog versus digital shootouts. So I plan on buying hardware. There's quite a few people that's in the Patreon already. So again, the money's stacking up, and I'm just going to buy analog hardware, shoot it out versus plugins, buy, sell, build. Just because obviously there's certain hardware that I can't get my hands on, okay? But I do have analog versus digital for you today via those fantastic chaps at Access Analog. For anybody that doesn't know, Access Analog is a platform that you can use to stream hardware online. Okay, so the 33609 that I've printed, okay, and streamed has been from Access Analog. They have a plugin that you can use, go straight in your DAW. So if you have a good broadband, then you could then stream the hardware online. You can do like 96k lossless if you really want. And if you wonder how do they manage this, they've actually got robots. Genuinely, they've got robots. So when you make a move in the plugin, the robot makes that move for you. Unfortunately, the robots malfunctioned on the 33609 that I've been using. So the robots, I think they're getting new robots for it. So I did plan on doing an entire kind of one whole shootout, just do it. So it'll be in 2 parts, okay? And I'll have the IK Multimedia next week, okay? So today it's going to be bass, guitar and drums. Next week it'll be vocal showing off the limiter and also mix bus. Okay, so I promise, right, 2 parts. So for anybody complaining that the IK Multimedia is not in the shootout, it's going to be next week. Okay, so with all that wrapped up, let's do it, okay? Access analog versus plugins, analog versus digital. Let's do it. Okay, so NEVE 33609, adorned by many an engineer, okay? The 33609 is most used, I think, on buses. It's seen kind of more of a bus compressor. I know Jack Joseph Puig, he uses it, or used to use it, or has used it on his guitar buses. Many people use it on their drum buses, some people use it for bass, a lot of people use it for mix bus, which is I think it's been most categorised as. A lot of people say the NEVE 33609, it kind of gives you this kind of low end, it gives you warmth, it gives you thickness, and it just kind of glues everything together and just gives you a lot of character, and you could really hit it without it sounding overdone, and it's quite smooth. Because it uses diode-bridge topology, I think that's the right term. It's basically a certain form of compression. It gives you a certain form of saturation, normally kind of rolls off the highs a little bit. And yeah, that's kind of the sound of the unit. So, in terms of the gear that we've got, obviously I've mentioned Access Analog. So Access Analog have a 33609N, which is the most modern unit that you could buy just now. That's the most modern reissue of the NEVE 33609, okay? So, in terms of the plugins, we've got 2 plugins for you today, okay? Now, this isn't really going to be the way that I normally do it. I normally try and see if I can get the plugin to sound like the analog. I can't really do it because these plugins are a different version of a 33609. So if we go back to the very start, okay, so the NEVE 33609N, which is the modern version of a NEVE 33609, which is the Access Analog hardware, that is basically trying to recreate the original, which is a 33609A, Tim Cupwise, he utilises the Acustica technology, which is NEBULA. Okay, so if you don't know what NEBULA is, there's a video I made last week. I'll stick a link up here to it, okay? And also in the description so you can watch it when you've got time, okay? Remember, subscribe, okay? I told you, there's loads of stuff in this playlist, okay? So he has created the 609A, which is basically a sampled impulse response of a original NEVE 33609A. So the really good thing about the shootout is we've got a plugin that's emulating the original, and we've got a new NEVE 33609. So it'll be interesting to see how close they are together, okay? Because I do expect there to be still different sounds, because the NEVE 33609N is basically trying to replicate the original, but it's still using more kind of modern construction. That's kind of what it says on the website, I think. Okay, so you had the A, which was the original. That was discontinued. Then they brought out the C, okay? Now, what you need to know about the A is it was a discrete compressor. And then what they did was with the C, they made it a non-discrete. And they also changed the transformers, and they also changed the output card as well, which a lot of people didn't like. A lot of people didn't like the C, they preferred the original. And then they brought out the J, and the J was basically stands for Japan. I think it was like manufactured in Japan. And then you have the JD, which is what the Acustica NEVE has sampled, and the D stands for discrete, so it's Japan discrete. Okay, now the difference with the JD and the other two is that the J had, I think, the same transformer and the same, I get confused, the same transformer and the same output card as the C, if I'm right. And the JD is non-discrete, so it's got the same transformers as the C and the J, I think, but I know the JD has the same output card, or the same output amplifier as the original, so that is going to impact. It's going to have a different sound, in my opinion, right? It's not like for like. The three of them aren't really like for like, because the NEVE 33609N, which is the access analog hardware, the transistors are custom made to the specs of the original. So they can't get the original transistors, but they've got somebody to make them to the original spec. So it's kind of a good way of kind of going, here's kind of three different NEVE 33609s. It'd be great to have all the hardware, but I don't have it, okay? So I don't really expect to kind of get them that close, because they'll have different impulse responses when they were sampled, okay? So let's just get straight into it. Let's just see how these things sound, okay? So first off, we'll go to bass, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the settings of the hardware, okay, the access analog, during the playback, the blind test. And basically what you need to know about the plugins is that the plugins are set the exact same. So again, you'll find that the NEVE 33609s, and they have kind of, it's either a fixed or like a program dependent attack, but you can't change it. Where in the NEVE 33609N, you can change the attack from fast to slow. But obviously for this comparison, I had to have them all set the same, so it's in the fast setting. So you'll normally find it's a faster attack, okay? That's what you'll normally find, okay? It's kind of fixed. So all the settings are the same. The only thing that might be different in the plugins is Acustica has the SHMOD, which is the attack envelope, and you also have a look ahead in the Cupwise, okay? So I've kind of used them to test. They've got high pass filters, high pass detection filters as well, so I can get more low end out of the plugins as well. So I've utilised everything that I can, but the main general basic settings are the same. Again, attack and recovery and stuff like that, and again, same compression as well, okay? So the bass is doing 3 to 5 dB of compression, okay? So let's get straight into it, and let's hear how these things sound. So, there you go. I picked the hardware, okay? Now, the reason I picked the hardware is, for me, I like aggressiveness, okay? That's just the way I am. I feel that the hardware is a little bit aggressive in its harmonics. It's a little bit more 3D, and the kind of low end of the bass just kind of comes out a little bit more. In comparison to the Cupwise, I think the Cupwise compression, it's smoother. It's smoother, and from what I've read online, the originals were known as being very, very smooth, and I think you get that smoothness out of the Cupwise compressor, and I think the saturation's actually better. I actually prefer the saturation. I actually prefer the low end. I actually feel that it's kind of a little bit more subby, and it's a little bit more, it's got a little bit more width to it, and I just like it. However, in the blind test, honestly, I did 2 tests, because when I go back and forwards with the hardware and the Tim Cupwise, I actually start thinking I prefer the Tim Cupwise, but in the blind test, I genuinely do pick out the hardware every time. Where with the NEVE, again, I don't know if it's the difference in transistors or whatever it is, but the harmonics just aren't there. It's in the same ballpark. It's like it's trying to be the Access Analog hardware, but it's just a little bit... It's the harmonics. Everybody knows that Acustica compressors can be a little bit hit and miss. Some of them are bang, like the magenta compressor in that shootout I did. I kind of think I got it nearly identical. There's times when you can get Acustica bang on, but again, it's a different unit. So again, let's not try and get that bang on. So I just kind of feel that for me, in terms of preference, I would say that the hardware wins out for me. I think dynamically, and I think in terms of its excitement and the way it kind of pops out in the mix, I prefer the hardware, but I also see a lot of benefits in Tim Cupwise's. Again, it's smooth. I'm trying to be more objective, okay, because people say I'm not objective enough, but I would say there's a smoothness, and I do like the low end more. It's not as punchy, but it's different, and it's almost just like, to me, a smoother, more saturated unit and kind of a more punchy, aggressive unit, where the Acustica kind of sits in the middle, and it's just not for me. It might be for you. Maybe it might be like really smooth for you. It's cleaner. That's what I could say. Trying to be objective, I'd say the Acustica is cleaner, and maybe that's kind of what's kind of the difference between the two, is that I prefer the more saturation and the more harmonics and the more low end, when I just feel that the Acustica is just, it's a little bit weaker in comparison, but you might like that. So that's kind of me on bass, okay? So hardware wins out for me, but the Cupwise runs a very, 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 very close second, okay? So let's go to drums. Let's see what the punch is like in this thing, okay? So again, settings will be in the playback and the blind test. It's only doing 1 dB of compression, right? Sometimes 2, like maybe 1 to 2 dB, the absolute most. I'm not hitting it. I could have fucking rattled it, but I just didn't. That's not how I use it. I do these shootouts in the way that I use them. So on a drum bus, I don't like to I'm already compressing individual tracks. I just want to add a bit of glue and a bit of extra added weight. So let's hear the difference between the 3, and let's kind of see what kind of characteristics it adds to the drums, and the difference in punch and kind of 3D character and low end weight as well. Let's do it. Now, that's very interesting, very interesting. There's, again, you'll see it in plug-in doctor at the end, that there's much more of a high-end roll-off in the Tim Cupwise, the original 33609. And you hear it at the start, and it kind of makes you feel that that's not as loud. Remember, everything's to integral LUFS, which is perceived loudness. There is a plugin that somebody showed me, it's free. I just didn't have time to get it set up and stuff. But you basically, what you do is you upload, you basically pick one source, and then you tell it to match, and it basically like exports it, and you export it in the file. I'll do that later on, okay, in the next shootouts, but I just didn't have time. So everything is to integral LUFS, which is perceived loudness. So what's interesting is that in terms of punch, it just doesn't have the character. It's got the harmonics, because I know, because it's like, you'll see in plugin doctor, it's got a lot of harmonics, but I did 2 takes with the Cupwise. I did one, which you heard there, which was with the look ahead, and I did one with the look ahead off, and it's just, I don't know what it is. It's like, it's got a little bit of separation to me. You kind of feel like you lose the room a little bit more. The low end, it just doesn't have that low end. It's the low end punch that I feel it's missing. And again, I'm using the high pass detectors as well to try and get that low end back in. But no matter what I did with the Cupwise, I just couldn't get the punch of the hardware. The hardware is this, like, it's an overall glue. The kick stands out perfect. The snare he's grabbing the snare. The highs are there. And it's like the Acustica NEVE is that. Just, again, it's cleaner. It's just too clean. But you might not like the hardware. You might think that that's too aggressive. Again, it's too aggressive in the highs. What I find interesting is that the hardware doesn't smooth out the highs as much as I thought it was. If you use something like Cush Audio Silica, again, another diode-bridge compressor style of plugin, you'll notice that it takes away the highs, and it kind of smooths everything out. So it's quite interesting to me that the Cupwise really does take out that high end, and you hear it, where the hardware, to me, it's not as smoother. It's not, which is really, really interesting. And I kind of feel that the NEVE is basically like a cleaner, slightly stripped back version of the hardware. It's just not there. I think the transients just aren't really there. The low end's just not really there. It's just like the hardware, the Access Analog, the N is like the Acustica on steroids. More saturation, more punch, and everything's just kind of, it's more glued and everything's standing out the way it should. The low end's fantastic on the hardware, where on the Cupwise, I just don't know. I just don't know what I could do. I tried many, many, many different things to try and get it to kind of sound as good as the hardware, and I just couldn't do it. So on bass it sounds fantastic, but on drums as a punch kind of monster, I don't know, maybe the original wasn't that great for punch. I don't know, it just wasn't for me on this one. But again, you might prefer it, okay? Remember, everything's objective, there is no right or wrong answers. So lastly, okay, let's go to guitars. Now I know that Jack Joseph Puig either still uses or has used a 33609 on his guitar bus. I read it, I think it was in Sound and Sound that I read it. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm a massive fan of JGP. He's one of my favourite mix engineers. I love everything he does. Nearly every record he does, I think, sounds amazing. I love his guitar sound as well. So when I found out that, I remember I was using the IK Multimedia 33609 on guitar buses for a long time. And I stopped because I don't really use that much compression on guitars. So let's go to guitars. Again, settings will be down below. 1 to 2 dB of compression. Again, you don't want to over compress electric guitars, okay, just in my opinion. So 1 to 2 dB compression, and yes, let's see how we fare on guitars. So, again, the hardware wins out. So there you go, 3 on the trot, and I prefer the hardware 3 times. Like the bass, this was close with the Cupwise. And again, I think it's that high-end roll-off that the Cupwise has. Again, the saturation comes out for me in the Cupwise. And again, that low-end kind of spread, which was kind of missing in the drums for me, which I still can't get over. But I'd say my 2 favourites are definitely what the Cupwise adds and the hardware. The hardware's got, again, this aggression, and it's like, in terms of like you can kind of hear the rhythm parts and the highs. It's clearer, and you kind of get more, you kind of hear the strums a little bit more. It's a little bit more 3D, a little bit more aggressive, and a little bit more dynamic. Where definitely the Cupwise is way smoother. It's kind of like it's really taking the harshness out of the guitars in a really nice way, and it's got that saturation, and it's definitely beefed up the guitars. Cupwise is what I would imagine in my head a 33609 to sound. Again, I'm still quite surprised, and kind of to me how aggressive the 33609 is in the hardware compared to the plugins. And again, the NEVE just always seems to like, and the drums it did better for me. But again here, it's trying to be the hardware, it's trying to be the N, but again, it's just that it lacks the transients, it lacks the excitement, it lacks the harmonics. You can raise the input, and the input will not change the compression, but I feel when you raise the input to add more harmonics, I just kind of felt that it was too smeary and the saturation wasn't right. You can't nail everything, but I feel again it's the saturation. At 0, which is the way I had the preset, that's the sampled harmonics, that's the default. But again, is that because it's a JD and that's an N? Is there a difference between transistors of the N and the transistors of the JD? I've seen on many forums online that many people have actually preferred the N to the JD. So I don't know if it's the plugin, or I don't know if it's that character of that unit. Personally, I would maybe take a hint and say that Acustica, in terms of saturation, they're not the best at it in terms of compressors, where Cupwise has really shown how to do it. And I do generally believe that the Cupwise and the hardware of the 33609N sound great, and it would really mix dependent. The two of them sound great. But again, aggressive. For me personally, in my taste, I went for the hardware. So there you go, 3 times the hardware won, which is gutting because you always want the plugin to kind of win out or be really, really close. But I do feel that the Cupwise definitely gives you a flavour that I could see myself using. It's a great alternative to, and for people that love kind of like that diode compression kind of style saturation and that kind of rounded off smoothness, I think you would really like the Cupwise. The NEVE, I don't know. I'm trying to be objective as possible because people say I'm not objective enough. The A is very, very, to me, in terms of like trying to get close to the hardware, it's there. It's like the hardware, but it's cleaner. It's just like there's the hardware, there's like the Acustica, and it's just a little bit stripped back. It's just a little bit more tame, a little bit more cleaner. Okay. Kind of how we could say it. The transients aren't there, the excitement isn't really there, but it's in the same ballpark, right? It's in the same ballpark. Again, it's a little bit smoother as well. Now, in terms of the Cupwise, all I need to tell you is if you are considering to buy it, now remember Cupwise is from Nebula, so again watch that Nebula video that I've done. So you need to have the full commercial version of Nebula to get the Tim Cupwise 609A. Now what you need to know is that for this comparison, I had to use the SHQ. Now, for Tim's compressors, right, I'll make this very quick, okay? You have a light, you have full, and you have SHQ. Now, the light is basically no harmonics, okay? No harmonics, it's just the compressor action. Then full is I think it's got a little bit more of a flatter linear frequency response, a little bit of a roll-off, I think, and then I think it's got 2 orders of harmonics. Then you've got the SHQ, okay, as I'm going to show you. The SHQ is absolutely crazy, and he said to me that this is how you get closest to the hardware. The linear frequency response is, I tried it in different, like in 48K and 96K and different formats, and the linear frequency response was always the same. It's fucking mental. That is non-linearity, right? If you want to ever see what's non-linearity, that's non-linearity right there. There's nothing linear about that. So it's a bit of a crazy frequency response, which again could have been the sampled hardware, again old units, and then as you can see with the harmonics, I think it's 7 orders. 7 orders of harmonics is a lot. I think the Acustica's only got 4, I think that's got 7, so it's using more kernels, and again it's got more harmonics, and it's doing a lot more. So what you need to know is to get the sound that I've got in the videos, you can't use that mode live, so you couldn't mix with it. It's a render only, because the CPU, it doesn't matter which computer you're on, it's going to kill you. So I think you can use the light or you can use the full, because the compressor action isn't affected, okay? So you can use, say, the full, still get 2 orders of harmonics, and then you go, right, okay, the compression sounding the way I like it, and then you move to the SHQ mode and render. There's a certain way you do it. Don't do it on the plugin I found. Load like an actual SHQ version of it and do the same settings, and then just like freeze it, which what I did for this, or render it. A lot of people will see that as a hassle, and I get it, and it did kind of crash the computer a few times doing it, but it could be my i5 laptop, okay? But in terms of sound quality, it's a very, very, very cool plugin, but there is limitations to it, and again, it's kind of more Nebula. I don't know how old Tim's compressor is, but to get that sound in that video, there is a difference. It's almost like the Lindell and the times 18 over, or the times 16 over sampling. It's kind of like that. You've got to use SHQ mode, and you will find that it does give you that saturation, and it gives you that crazy linear frequency response, which does sound different and has its own sound. It's very cool, but there's still limitations to it. Okay, so I just wanted you to know that. The Acustica is the Acustica, right? It's hit and miss. You might like it, and guess what? If you like it, can buy it, right? Because there's no right or wrong answers. Again, it's just opinions at the end of the day. I don't care about plug-in politics. I don't want to hear. All I want to hear from you guys is the sound. If you think it sounds shit, then fine, it's some shit. But like, I don't want to hear like stupid things like, I've never tried Acustica audio, but again, lots of fucking crap, and bringing other plugin developers and manufacturers into the mix when there's no need. Just speak about the sound, right? Just speak about what you heard and what you preferred, right? Let's not bring plug-in politics into it. I can't be bothered with arguments and deleting comments. I just can't be bothered, okay? So again, remember, keep this fun. It's all fun. Let's not take the fun out of it, right? For new people, right? A lot of people might look in the comments and go, I can't be bothered with that. I don't want anybody to be scared to comment their opinion, right? You might like Acustica. You might have thought it sounded crap. You might have thought the Tim Cupwise sounded crap. You might have thought the hardware sounded crap. It doesn't matter. It's your opinion, and I want to hear your opinion, okay? So if you've liked this video, please like it, right? Very important, like. And remember, check out the Patreon stuff, and again, join if you want to join as well and get more access into the Mix on Wednesday stuff. And if you are a member, you'll know what I'm doing next week, okay? Because again, I've got to be very mindful that I can't give you too much away. There's a whole point of being a member, that you get behind the scenes access. So if you want to know what I'm doing next week, then click that join button, become a Mix on Wednesday member, and you can find out all the stuff that's happening on Mix on Wednesday before anybody else. Okay, so thank you very much, guys, for your time. Always appreciate it, okay? Always appreciate your time, okay? So thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you again next week.